Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. This is Amna Gul from the Department of Journalism and Mass Communication. We're back with the course Communication Theories 2, bearing the code GMC 312. It's our 13th lecture, and the topic today is studying communication theory. We'll be studying theory with reference to images today. So we'll be better able to understand what theory is, and then we'll discuss some essential features of communication. So for Burgoon, a theory consists of a set of systematic informed hunches about the way things work. Now, hunches are basically like guesses, okay? Or the kind of like when we use the term tukka. So basically, these are systematic guesses and informed guesses about certain things, how those things work, or how certain things operate. So in the rest of this lecture, I'll examine 3 key features of Burgoon's notion of a theory. First, I'll focus on the idea that theory consists of a set of hunches. But a set of hunches is only a starting point. Second, I'll discuss what it means to say that those hunches have to be informed, like those are informed hunches. Last, I'll highlight the notion that the hunches have to be systematic. So let's look briefly at the meaning of each of these core concepts of theory. So the first one was a set of hunches. You'll be surprised by the picture, but I'll explain it in a while, okay? So if a theory is a set of hunches, it means we aren't yet sure we have the answer. When there is no puzzle to be solved or the explanation is obvious, there is no need to develop a theory. Theories always involve an element of speculation or conjecture. Being a theorist is risky business because theories go beyond accepted wisdom. Once you become a theorist, you probably hope that all thinking people will eventually embrace the trial balloon that you have launched. But when you first float your theory, it's definitely in the hunch category. So, for example, whenever you have a theory about anything, let's suppose you have a friend, a classmate rather, and you have a theory that this person has this kind of personality or this kind of characteristics. So it is just your hunch, and you actually want that your friend circle or the others in your circle, they should embrace your judgment about that person, your theory about that person. But actually in the beginning stage, it is just your hunch. So that is the case with theories. Remember, we related theories with our personal perspectives as well. So this is where it is. Now, by referring to a plural, that is a set of hunches, it's not one hunch, it's a set of hunches rather than a single hunch, Burgoon makes it clear that a theory is not just one inspired thought or an isolated idea. For example, the young theorist in this cartoon may be quite sure that, for example, dogs and bees can smell fear. But that isolated conviction isn't a theory. A developed theory offers some sort of explanation. For example, how are bees and dogs able to sniff out fright? Now, this is a theory, fine, that actually dogs can smell fear, or the bees can actually guess, or they can smell fear, fine. So, we need for to develop theory. A developed theory offers some sort of explanation for this thing. For example, how are bees able to sniff out fright, or how are dogs able to sniff out fright? Perhaps the scent of sweaty palms that comes from high anxiety is qualitatively different than the odor of people perspiring from hard work. A theory will also give some indication of scope. Do only dogs and bees possess this keen sense of smell, or do butterflies and kittens have it as well? So, theory construction involves multiple hunches. I hope you got it. Let's revisit it. When you're constructing a theory, it starts with hunches, but those hunches are, it's not just one single isolated hunch or idea, rather it is a set of hunches, and those hunches are actually developed. They offer some kind of explanation. They kind of cover multiple elements of the same idea or of the same phenomena. So that is where theory development starts. Then the second point that I said we'll be discussing is informed hunches. Now, Borman's description of creating communication theory calls for a careful, self-conscious analysis of communication phenomena, but Burgoon's definition asks for more. It's not enough simply to think carefully about an idea. A theorist's hunches should be informed. Working on a hunch that a penny thrown from the Empire State Building will become deeply embedded in the sidewalk. This is once again the picture of Empire State Building, and there's a concept that people tend to throw a lot of pennies from that. So the young theorist has a responsibility to check it out. Before developing a theory, there are articles to read, people to talk to, actions to observe, or experiments to run, all of which can cast light on the subject. At the very least, a communication theorist should be familiar with alternative explanations and interpretations of the type of communication they are studying. For example, have you heard the story of Galileo dropping an apple from the Leaning Tower of Pisa? So, there's a professor from Pepperdine University, the communication professor, Fred Kashmir. His description of theory parallels Burgoon's call for multiple informed hunches. He says theories are sometimes defined as guesses. Hunch is a guess, but significantly as educated guesses, which is like Burgoon's calls it informed hunches. Theories are not merely based on vague impressions, nor are they accidental byproducts of life. Theories tend to result when their creators have prepared themselves to discover something in their environment, which triggers the process of theory construction. So, for example, in the Pakistani perspective, if we think about it, there are certain theories, for example, that you tie a thread at a certain tree and then your wishes will come true, and it's then in the Indian perspective it is about certain things that there are certain pools of water. If you put a coin in that, your wish comes true. So similarly, it's about Empire State Building in America, that you drop a coin, your wish comes true. But there are different ways of going through it. So, for example, if you are a theorist, a young theorist, and you have certain hunches, then your hunches should be informed. That is, if you throw a penny from Empire State Building, I hope you know it's the tallest building. Okay. So it would become deeply embedded in the sidewalk, for example. Now, I was, apart from these two things, then I said that we'll be discussing that hunches are systematic. So let's go to that. Now, these are the young theories, like about journal people, and I'll be discussing these. Most scholars reserve the term theory for an integrated system of concepts. A theory not only lays out multiple ideas but also specifies the relationships among them. In common parlance, it connects the dots. The links among the informed hunches are clearly drawn so that a whole pattern emerges. None of the young theories in this cartoon rise to this standard. Since most of the 9 are presented as one-shot claims, they aren't part of a conceptual framework. Now, one possible exception is the dual speculation that adults are really martyrs and they are up to no good. Can you find that one out? Which one is it? Yeah, the last one. It says adults are really martyrs and they are up to no good. But the connecting word and doesn't really show the relationship of grown-ups. See, grown-ups' unsavory activity and their hypothesized other-world origin. So to do that, the young theorist could speculate about the basic character of Martians, how they got here, why their behavior is suspicious, and whether today's youth will turn into aliens when they become parents. Now, a theory would then tie together all of these ideas into a unified whole. As you learn about any theory covered in this course, you have a right to expect a set of systematic, informed hunches. So it's 3 things. Now let's have a look at all the cartoons that are in this picture for you. So if you eat a bunch of fizzies, then drink a glass of water, you'll explode. So now this is just a hunch. This is just an idea, a single state. It does not relate things. Fine. So these are people, like this is why it's mentioned as young theorists, because this is like journal hunches that people make about different things. Then the second one is the one that we earlier discussed, that dogs and bees can smell fear. Actually, for example, I myself have heard it quite a number of times that you don't have to be fearful of a dog because dogs tend to smell fear. And I've never actually challenged this thing. So when we study theories, we actually realize that we need to find out, does it actually work? Is it true? In what conditions it is true? Is it related to dogs only or to some other animals as well? So stuff like that. Then the third one, nothing's impossible. Not even a little baby counting all the grains of sand in the whole world in a fraction of a sand. A second. So once again, it's just a hunch, and I don't think it is an informed one. Do you? Do you find it an informed hunch? Then the fourth one, which we discussed, if you throw a penny off the top of the Empire State Building, it will go a foot into the sidewalk. Now, it can hit someone as well. Like, have you ever wondered? Because you might not be aware, but Empire State Building is right in the middle of the heart of the city. So it can hit anyone passing by. It can even kill them because it is owing to the height, it can gain a lot of momentum. And so all these things. So we'll move on. Now, in response to the question, what is a theory? I've presented a verbal definition. But many of us are visual learners as well and would appreciate a concrete image that helps us understand what a theory is and what it does. I'll therefore present 3 metaphors that I find helpful, but will also note how an over-reliance on these representations of theory might lead us astray. Now, this is not just me presenting these are actually proposed by different scientists, okay, or proposed by different philosophers, but I'll be sharing 3 of these here. Now, the first one is theories as nets. Now, philosopher of science Karl Popper says that theories are nets cast to catch what we call the world. I'll repeat. Theories are nets cast to catch what we call the world. So we endeavor to make the mesh ever finer and finer in order to catch all that is possible. Okay? I appreciate this metaphor because it highlights the ongoing labor of the theorists as a type of deep sea angler. For serious scholars, theories are the tools of the trade. The term the world can be interpreted as everything that goes on under the sun and even the sun, thus requiring a grand theory that applies to all communication all the time. Conversely, catching the world could be constructed as calling for numerous special theories. So, different kinds of small nets to capture distant types of communication in local situations. Since we are more concerned with communication theories, so my examples are going towards communication now. Okay. Yet, either way, the quest for finest meshed nets is somewhat disturbing because the study of communication is about people rather than schools of fish. So the idea that theories could be woven so tightly that they would snag everything that humans think, humans say, humans do, it strikes me as naive. The possibility also raises question about our freedom to choose some actions and reject others. So no doubt it is a good idea that theories are nets to cast to catch what we call the world. But actually, if we think about it in the communication perspective, humans are not simply fish that can be caught. Okay? So it's not about schools of fish. It's actually about humans thinking, humans doing things, humans saying things. And those cannot be caught by just nets. So it kind of doesn't fit in for communication, at least. Let's move to the other image of theory. Now, theories as lenses. Many scholars see their theoretical constructions as similar to the lens of a camera or a pair of glasses, as opposed to a mirror that accurately reflects the world out there. See, the mirror actually reflects as the things are. So it's not like that. It's more about the lens of a camera or a pair of glasses, actually the kind of lens that you are using in a camera. According to that, you can focus on certain elements. For example, the lens imagery highlights the idea that theories shape our perception by focusing attention on some features of communication while ignoring other features, or at least pushing them into the background. Two theorists could analyze the same communication event, for example, an argument, perhaps, and depending on the lens each uses, one theorist may view this speech act as a breakdown of communication or the breakup of a relationship, while the other theorist will see it as a democracy in action. See, for example, whenever we have, just imagine you and your friend having an argument, or you having an argument with your neighbor, for example. So those on your side would view that as a different thing, and those on your neighbor's side, or those people who are on the side of your friend, might view it as something very differently. So for some people, for example, it might be a breakup in relationship, an argument that actually ends in a breakup kind of thing. But for others, it is, for example, democracy or freedom of expression. Okay? So this is different. So that is the way with theorists. If the same argument was being studied by some theorists, so the lens that whichever theorist was using, according to that, automatically they'll be viewing that one very incident, that same argument, as two very different things. Okay. So for me, the danger of the lens metaphor is that we might regard what is seen through the glass as so dependent on the theoretical stance of the viewer that we abandon any attempt to discern what is real or true. See, we have seen these imageries a lot that, for example, media, how media portrays certain things. So there are many at times that there is a difference between what is being portrayed or what is being seen through the lens and what is actually real or what is truth. So once again, this imagery of theories has its downside. Now the third, theories as maps. I use this image when I describe the first look texts to others. Within the analogy, communication theories are maps of the way communication works. So once again, communication theories are maps of the way communication works. Now, the truth they depict may have to do with objective behaviors out there or subjective meanings inside our heads. Either way, we need to have theory to guide us through unfamiliar territory. In this sense, theories is like a scenic atlas that pulls together different must-see locations. It's the kind of travel guide that presents a close-up view of each site. I would caution, however, that the map is not the territory. A static theory, like a still photograph, can never fully portray the richness of interaction between people that is constantly changing, always more varied, and inevitably more complicated than what any theory can chart. As a person intrigued with communication, aren't you glad it is this way? See, for example, when we are considering theories as maps, this imagery actually it says that communication theories are maps of the way communication works. Now, in case of maps, you will be knowing very well that there is not only one route to go from one place to another. You can have multiple routes, but it actually shows a connection between the starting point and the ending point or the destination. Okay, so when there are such places, when do you use maps? We use maps when we are going through certain places that we are not familiar with. For example, if you visit, let's suppose, Lahore or Karachi or Islamabad, you may be unfamiliar with these cities. So you might be using map to reach a certain conference hall, for example. So, for example, you have an interview there for your internship. So you will be needing maps. So for that case, map just shows you the way. And it is not clear that it is the only way. It is one of the best ways to reach that destination from your starting point. But if you change the starting point, the map changes, the route changes. Okay. So, for example, it is a good enough explanation for that matter. Here, I would like to share with you a video for the same as well. Let's watch that. This is the exact same explanation of theory using the different imagery. So let's start with that. Let's listen to it.
So then actually, what is theory? So it's a set of systematic informed hunches about the way things work. So theory kind of helps us connect the dots about what we're seeing in daily life, what we're seeing in these situations happening. You know, if you have enough dots that kind of are all together, people create theories to say, this is what I think's going on. Like, this is the relationship I see between those. There's always an element of speculation with it because, you know, unlike the hard sciences, people are always changing. They do, you know, you could put the same person in the same situation 2 different times and they might respond differently based on, you know, what they learned from that first time. But with
Now you see, for example, it's why are these informed hunches? Because if we are looking at it from the people's perspective, people tend to behave differently when they're exposed to the same situation twice or thrice or more than that. So or for example, from one time period to the other time, there can be a lot of elements that had affected that person. So things change differently for people.
Theory, you have to have defined key terms, so we all have to agree on the meaning of the words we're talking about. Because if you and I have a different definition of the word symbol, then we're probably not going to be able to come to a consensus about that particular aspect of this theory. And before you develop a theory, you have to have a lot of good background information. You have to know what other people are saying about this situation that you're looking at.
For example, let's consider the term freedom of expression. See, my concept of the freedom of expression might be different from your concept. So for that matter, whenever you are developing theories, you need to understand in depth what is meant by freedom of expression. For example, if the theory relates to freedom of expression, fine. So you need to do a lot of background work. It's not just a hunch, it has to be informed one. So that for that matter, you need to know what is being said about it,
what people have said in the past, and then are there any other alternative explanations that might be possible based on other theories that are already in use. It's really, really hard to kind of come up with a new theory because, well, the communication discipline's pretty old, but it takes a lot of work. I mean, it's always possible. Hopefully there'll be new communication theories in my lifetime. Probably a lot with social media, with as much as it's gained popularity in the past 10, 15 years. But
exactly. See, it takes a lot of effort to make theories, to develop theories, and then you need to work on it. Now, in the current changing landscape of communication, of radically changing landscape of mass communication, there are new theories popping up, but they require a lot of hard work, and every new theory is based on a lot of research.
We don't know. People are still connecting those dots together. So how can we conceptualize theory? For some people, I can just say, yeah, it's a way of looking at the world or creating things. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great. But for a lot of us, we really need to kind of get a mental picture of what it might look like. So there's 3 metaphors that we typically use in the communication discipline. So nets, lenses, and maps. And all kind of have their good things and their bad things about them. So you just have to pick the one that works best for you.
Once again, it's about your choice. You need to think about it, which works best for you. These are different images about theory, and these are proposed by philosophers and by scientists. So these are well approved. See, what we have discussed these things a couple of times, that when we are viewing things from different perspectives, there are more than one true possibilities. Okay, there is not one single universal truth. There are people who stand by one perspective, there are others who stand by the other perspective, and there's still others who support another perspective. And for all these perspectives, these people have strong arguments, these people have proofs to support that particular thing.
So theories as nets. So Karl Popper said that theories are nets cast to catch what we call the world. So you can have grand...
See here, I wanted you to actually write down these definitions as well, in case you did not write down when I was narrating these, because this is going to help you out a lot. And you can see that certain things are written down here for you to actually analyze these
theories, which might be more big nets, but that's saying something that happens in all communication instances all the time. And that's really hard to pin down because people are very complex. And with that, you'd still need a lot of smaller nets to catch those smaller fishes to be able to capture these distinct acts in small situations on an individual level. But like I said, people are complex. People are not fish. You cannot weave a theory so tightly as to capture everything. It's really hard to say, all people do this in all situations or every time.
Exactly. See, people are not that predictable and people are not that simple. Catching fish is quite a very simple imagery or a very simple analogy. So it's not like it can relate to people actually. People are very complicated. Human beings, they behave differently in different times, in different situations, uh, in different conditions, in different environments. So they can change without any reason. It's fine. So for that matter, it is very difficult to catch what people do. And the imagery of nets, see, with nets there are things that slip out. For example, water slips out of the nets and they catch fish only. But with humans, how tightly would you weave the net that you get every aspect of human communication or human behavior? So that is once again quite very difficult. We'll continue this lecture in the next one, and we'll continue with we'll complete this concept and the video. So that's all for today. See you next time. Thank you.